Validation versus verification. So this is a common discussion if you're trying to learn about testing, right? So what is validation? If you look at online, you will always get like validation is about are we building the right product, and then verification says like are we building the product right. What does it actually mean? It's a jumble of words. If English is not your first language, you might slightly confused what is the difference about these two things. You have to think it in this way, right? Verification is pretty much we know exactly what we want. This is what the consumer wants. This is what we want as a developer. This is what our consumers want as a user. So we are building something with that specific functionalities and options so that the consumer can use it, they will pay us. That's how the software works. So this is pretty much when you are verifying a solid moment, you already know what you are building and what you are what is your expected outcome. If you are checking, if you know what you need and then you build what you need and you check if that needs are met, that is pretty much very simple, what we call it as verification, right? So when you know what you are building or why you are building, then it comes into the checking of confirmation of those things will consider into verification. Then there is this validation, right? So a project manager comes up with a new idea, or a developer wanted to do something that he or she thinks this better for the user, or a project manager, tester, developer, customer support, marketing. So those are all influencers or stockholders identifying what should be built. But validation is pretty much is these ideas are actually applied to the user. The user is going to pay for these new features. So whatever time you are spending, that has to be accompanied by the inflow of the cash what the consumer pays is. How do you confirm this, right? So how do you confirm the consumer actually like this, and where do you get this information from? So this is what you need to think when you are hearing about validation. You are building something, you do your best, but you are not sure if that functionality meets the consumer's expectations. When you are unsure about the requirements, then you do some validations that if I'm a consumer, would I like this? If I am a consumer, I would click the bottom right button or top left button, right? So this kind of confusions will comes into picture, that validation comes in. But in practice, if you think about it, in current scenario in 2025, most of the testing what we are doing is about verification. For example, because it's kind of when the company becomes bigger, these kind of interactions are split into small pieces where marketing is isolated. Marketing talks to only to the project management only talk to the developers, developer only talk to the testers, and vice versa. So these kind of gaps as a tester, you might not have a big say on, oh, why are you doing it as a Excel import? Why don't we do it as a CSV import? Why don't we do it as a JSON import, right? So these kind of things actually makes the consumer's life better, but you don't have much say in that in current recent scenarios, because it's already decided by the different stockholders or higher person in the team. When you are, again, that's the difference between service companies and product companies. Service companies have a very definitive requirement. So this is what the client needs. You only need to write test cases. You only need to write test scripts. You write it in that specific language. So you will be simply verifying or accepting their terms, and then you just follow through. But in product companies, this is kind of a bit more open, that you have suggestions. You can talk to anyone. You can talk to a marketing lead, or you can talk to a customer support lead, talk to them, find their pain points, and you can suggest some fields. So this is where it goes into. Verification is when you are sure this is the requirement when you are static and you are focusing on static requirements and focusing on make sure that requirements meet. That is what we call it as verification. And then validation is going beyond that area, and we are thinking more into, is it actually the consumer will be happy about this? So that's how we have to think when you're thinking about verification versus validation.